Okay, and to recap the strategic planning process, we will review each division's information matrix, which I've outlined in summary form, and then we will review each division's SWOT analysis, which I have not received, but hopefully you have it with you. And then we want to identify items that are relevant to the Institute as a whole. So the objective is to look at each division's strength, weakness, opportunities, and threats, and then see out of color of that what is the big picture, how the ones that affect the Institute. We will then bore down later on, once we've addressed the Institute as a whole, then we will address the individual divisions. So we won't start with a detailed analysis of your division until we have an understanding of what the Institute is going to be doing. Okay, and then we want to rank basically the items of the SWOT in terms of priority, so that we know what is the most important issues in terms of strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, threats, and then proceed from there. And then we do what is called a TOES analysis, which is threats, opportunities, weakness, and strength, sort of a reverse. So you look at the SWOT information and then you try to determine how to deal with your weaknesses, how to improve on your strengths, and we use that information towards your strategic plan. So that should result in your strategies. To recap then, on the planning meeting we set up a working group of 6 people, and basically covering, is it 4 division heads? Or no, they're not even all division heads, right? So anyway, 5 working group people, various aspects within the Institute, that is really tasked with taking all this information, meeting, discussing, and coming up with a strategic plan for you. So to recap, basically the strategic planning cycle involves establishing some goals, which could be new. Obviously, if you have existing goals, you could still look at how you can do a better job, but technically the idea is that goals kind of move because it is dynamic, and we need to look at the situation, say, in the next 5 years. What do you see as the goals of your Institute? Once we determine that, we can look at the outcomes that you need, and from the outcomes, you would develop your strategies. And then you need some measurement, like monitoring and evaluation, so that you know how you're progressing. And then you get results. And then from the results, you re-look at the goals, and then you start again. So the strategic plan, generally, you should look at it and do small changes annually to adjust. And you should do a rewrite every 5 years, completely tear it apart, if possible. Part of the desired outcomes will come from the inventory of information we're trying to obtain from each division. That gives us a picture, all right? And we can discuss some of this afterwards. So a good SWOT analysis provides you with information you need to plan on how you can meet your new goals. Moving on to the SWOT. So what should the SWOT tell you? So internally in your organization, I forwarded to each division head a pretty good little resource document on SWOT analysis. It actually is one of the better ones I found for reference. If you go through it, basically it's Ultimate Guide for Conducting a SWOT Analysis by bplans.com. So this is a consulting company that offers a service for business planning. So they produced this reference guide. So within the reference guide, it has some ideas of thinking. So at each division, you were given the SWOT matrix, and you were asked to determine your strength, weakness, opportunities, and threats. So in terms of strengths and weaknesses, so some of the points here that you should be looking at is, for example, financial resources. So this is where we're looking at your budget, and adequacy of the budget gives you an indication. Physical infrastructure means your facilities, your building, your equipment. So you need to look at, do you have really old computers to do your job? Do you need newer computers? Do you need newer software? Do you need, etc.? Other intellectual property. So within the institute, do you produce outputs that can be intellectually registered and be valued that you can sell? Okay, so intellectual property. It's like do you develop software that you can market to the government and other people? Human resource, that's the key, that's your staffing. Part of the information we're gathering here, in terms of human resource, I've asked for in inventory data. And then key players, like do you have within your division an individual or individuals who are stars in your organization that the private sector or the government must have to consult with or go to for research information. So these are key players. And then employee programs. So do you have programs within your institute or your division for training staff? Giving them capacity building of your staff? Internal mentoring. Do you keep them happy by doing team building, etc.? Okay, so this is employee programs for satisfaction and improvement in their capability to do their work. And then company workflow. Is your company or organization, in this case, the type of work you do meaningful? All right? Are you doing things in an efficient way, in a nice way, or a very systematically old way that is very inefficient? Company reputation, so our organization. So is the Institute's reputation outside, within your stakeholder community, good, bad, yes, no, maybe so kind of thing. So these are kind of situations, and market position. So in Mongolia, where does the Institute of Geography and Geoecology sit? Is there others that want to take your position? And then what is your growth potential? So you look out there and say, okay, is there more work we could do or more research we could do that will get funded? Obviously, that is an important aspect. So this is basically the box, the matrix that you're supposed to fill out. So in terms of strengths and weaknesses, okay? So strength and weaknesses, opportunities and threats. So this is effectively, this is actually the TOES table. So we're reversing those. We want to build opportunities from your threats, from your strengths, right? Okay? So the objective is, how do we use your strength to make it into an opportunity? And then similarly, if there are threats, how can you use the company's strength to minimize the threats? So this is moving past the SWOT now. And then in terms of weaknesses, what action can you take to minimize the company's weakness using the opportunities you've identified? Okay? So opportunities external, weakness is internal. So you see an opportunity, you have a weakness. How do we turn the weakness into an opportunity that we can exploit? Similarly, you have a strength and you have a threat. So how do you use the strength to offset the threat? And then same thing with weakness. So how can you minimize the company's weakness? So that's just the TOES part of things. All right, so this is an example of using some companies. For example, there are some opportunities a manufacturer has identified. For example, there's more demand for luxury cars. It's an opportunity. Okay, there's attractive offers to build a plant in the US, and you've identified that 2 auto manufacturers need smaller engines. Okay. So in terms of a TOES table, which is the reverse, like it's not a reverse, it's a kind of inverse. You use the SWOT, okay, and you try to now come up with combinations, okay? So you want to use, for example, you know that there is some external opportunity. Mm-hmm. You want to address it in terms of your internal strengths and your internal weaknesses. So what do you do with that opportunity is what a TOES matrix does. We will do this with a couple of your outputs, hopefully. We'll see what happens. So basically, for example, in this case study, they have identified some opportunities for that organization, which is there's a growing market for luxury cars out there. There is incentive to build a manufacturing plant in the US, okay? And that 2 of the auto companies in the US need smaller engines. And then for our company, or this hypothetical company that we belong to, we've identified that we have very strong research and development and engineering skills. We have a strong sales and service network, and we have very efficient production and automation capabilities. So we look at the opportunities and our strengths. We create what is called the SO box. So we fill out this box now. So we're saying, okay, given there's these opportunities on the left and our strengths on top, what can we do? Okay, so say for the first one, the first point, there is a demand for luxury cars, and we have strong R&D engineering. So what we could do is develop a multi-product line with many options for nice cars. Okay, and the second one, because there's incentives to build a plant in the US, and we have a strong sales and service network there, maybe we can start looking at building an assembly plant in the US to take advantage of the offers, right? The tax incentives. And so, and the third one, because the American Motors and Chrysler need smaller engines, we can use our efficient production to also add engines into the factory at the same time. So this is how we would use our strength to build on top of the opportunity. So the output, the finished SWOT output, will tell you what the goal is for the finished one. It's improved focus. It is an opportunity to start the conversation with each other as to what we found. And it will help us identify unknown aspects, really, because, as an institute, you're quite large, you have many divisions, and so maybe people in other divisions do not know what your issues are, okay, and what your strengths are. So part of this exercise, again, is actually to help you communicate with each other so that you understand what each other is doing as well. And so at the end, then, basically our objective is to come up with the strategies for a successful implementation. That being said, right, well, thank you.